Ebony's creativity.
Hey everybody, I'm Ebony. This is Ebony's Creativity. Thank you so much for joining me here on my channel. Today I am going to be bringing to you a long-awaited furniture flip. I know you guys really enjoy these videos and they seem to do well on my channel. So before I hop into the flip, I just wanted to pop in and request that you subscribe to my channel, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Alright guys, so let's hop right into this flip. These are the pieces that we are going to be working on today. I missed you guys last week, so I decided to give you a two for this week. So we're going to be doing these nightstands. And I did get both of these pieces for 40 bucks, which I thought was a really good deal. All the hardware is present and all the drawers are sliding easily and in working order. They do have some white stuff in them. Not quite sure what this powdery stuff is, but it cleaned up really nicely in the end, so I'm glad I didn't let it deter me. There is a couple of issues with this drawer. The track is still on, thank God, and it's sliding smoothly on the track, but that back panel is missing and that bottom portion was missing. I don't know if you caught that, but we'll circle back around to that later in the video. But I like to finish my pieces. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know I replace back panels if those are kind of rickety. I replaced bottom. I replaced the whole thing, anything that's not up to my par. So I will be going back around to that, but this veneer on here is in pretty bad shape, particularly around the edges. So I'm just kind of giving you a tour of that. This is the better of the two, the one that's here on the left that we're looking at right now. The one on the right is much worse, but I'm just thankful that the drawer slides are good. Drawer guides, excuse me, are good. And all the hardware is present. But you can see what I meant. This right one, this has a lot of veneer damage. And the veneer is paper thin. And underneath is pressed particle board. So, gonna be labor intensive to fix, but I know that I can do it. Again, all the drawers are really good on this one. The bottom panel is fine. The back panels are fine on both. The hardware is not on this drawer, but I do have it, so I'm thankful for that. And overall, this one has a lot of veneer work. As you can see, as I kind of scan over, it's cracked pretty much all the way around on this one, but that's okay because it's going to be fixable. So that's what we like to see. And on this one, we also have, like I said, it's cracked all the way around on the top ring, but we also have like a chunk missing out of this back leg. So that's going to be fixable as well. So that's what we're starting with. Here's another look at those just so you can remember where we are. And now let's get started. So we're going to start on the one that's most badly damaged. So that would have been the one that was just on the right. And I do not have, or cannot find rather, my clamps. And so in order to get this secure, you can see it's really wobbly and it's in pretty bad shape. I am just going to start throwing every kind of adhesive that I have to this. I don't know why I did not think to secure it with tape, kind of use the tape as a clamp, pull it really over top. I don't know why I didn't think to do that, but I didn't. So what I came up with was just to throw as many adhesives as I could and hold it for as long as my patience would allow. So I put some of this Gorilla Glue, super glue in, and I was trying to just work it in, squeeze the pieces together to get it kind of pushed all in the areas of the press board underneath. Then I hit it with some wood glue because that's going to give me a really secure hold. Would have been much better with clamps, but like I said, I could not find the ones that I do have, and I probably just need to buy some more overall. But anyway, we're not going to dwell on what I don't have. I'm just making do. So I'm just using my finger and kind of pushing the glue in so that it will cover the inside part of the entire cracked area. Then I'm going to be using some hot glue with the Gorilla Glue sticks because the hot glue will kind of hold it right now while the other two glues dry in the inside. So that method seemed to work pretty well. It's really strong and it stayed intact because I wasn't thinking just to tape it up. so that it will hold in place. I sat there for a little bit with my hands, and I kind of just held it together until I was able to release my hands and have it stay. Next, we're going to work on that chunk that was coming out of that back leg. We're going to be using this quick wood. I've used this before. It works really well. It kind of smells bad, so I should have used gloves, but you know, I never do everything that I'm supposed to do. And so here's how that looked once I got that filled in. Now moving on to some of that other damaged veneer, and I'll be using this plastic wood filler. And the method that I use to apply this is the same as I use to do the quick wood. My method is basically to pack it on, push it into the area, and then go over it with my finger. I don't try to get it perfectly smooth because that's what the sanding is for. But as you can see here, I'm kind of pushing it in and smoothing it out. I don't worry about getting it even almost smooth. I just get it on there as best as I can to where I'm sure that it's going to stick, and I just walk away from it. It's tempting to keep tinkering with it, but I found that if you just apply it, if you pack it on there, you can sort out any other issues that you have later when you go back to sand. The most important thing is to pack it on and to push it into the damaged area. So that's what you see me doing here. And after this portion dried that I glued up, I had so much wood filling to do. One little trick I did learn was to add a little bit of water, and that helps smooth it out more easily. So you can see it looks pretty lumpy. It's not smooth in the least bit, but that's okay because it's packed in there. And my bottom patch is still looking good, and all the veneer on here has been patched up. This one has a few areas that are going to need some wood filler as well, but since I just showed you my method, I wasn't sure if I should make this video even longer by doing that, so I decided not to bore you with doing the same thing twice. But I did fill the veneer on that one as well. I was very lucky to get all the hardware on this piece, like I said, so my next step is going to be to remove that. If you're not going to be working on your hardware right away, you'd want to put it in a plastic bag to keep everything together, especially if you have little pieces like this, where this medallion with these little teeny tiny screws in it. You want to take those off very gently. Look at how tiny that nail is. If you lose that, you'll never find it again if you drop it. So I just am sure to always keep my stuff together. But I'm going to be going right into working on my hardware, so I didn't put them in the plastic baggie yet. But very important to keep them all together and to keep any little nails or screws that come with it. It'll just make your life easier when you go to put everything back together. So I'm just using a Lysol wipe, and I am wiping down all the different pieces. And sometimes you'll find that when you unscrew them, they come apart like these did, but it's no big deal to put back together. So don't let that deter you, and don't think it's broken. They slide back together just like they slid apart. So I'm just wiping these down. And then when that's complete, I am going to take a lint-free cloth and dry them off, as you see me doing here. And then up next, I am going to use this Rust-Oleum Gold spray paint and spray away. And as you can see, those turned out really nicely. They sprayed up well, so I was very pleased with how they turned out. Here's that bottom panel I was talking to you about before. And literally, I tapped it and it was starting to fall to pieces. So it took me only a few seconds to get this panel out. Then I measured it so that I could cut this piece of scrap wood that I have to fit. And I always try to use what I have. Normally, I have something that I can make do with around my shop. So that's what I did here. I found this little piece of scrap wood from a previous project, and I just cut it to size, and I was able to use it as the bottom piece for that nightstand. So after I got that all cut, I just used my little 5-in-1 tool to kind of help me press it into the lip that the previous piece was sitting in, and it worked out beautifully. Up next, I am going to be fixing this drawer. As you can see, it's really in bad shape. Only a small piece of it is remaining, so I'm just going to measure that out, and I'm going to use the same piece of scrap wood that I used for that bottom portion. So as you can see here, I've already cut out a piece, And I'm just doing a dry fitting right now to make sure that it fits well and that it does not cover up any part of the drawer guide, because I would not want to secure this and have it block the drawer, have the drawer stick out when I try to push it in. So just wanted to make sure that it was flush, and I adhered it with Gorilla Hot Glue, which works well. Up next, I'm going in with some 220 grit sandpaper, and I'm just doing a scuff sanding over the whole thing. The top and the sides were really not all that bad, so, and the drawer fronts as well were not really all that bad, so I just did a light scuff sanding with 220 grit sandpaper. And then when I went to go do this edge right here, I didn't show you, but I switched to 120 grit sandpaper, and it took a lot more time just to smooth out all that wood filler and all the areas that I patched. So the scuff sanding I did with 220 grit, then I changed the sandpaper to 120 grit, and I was able to smooth out all the wood filler around the edges with that. Then I changed to a 40 grit because that wood, that quick wood, is really, really hard, and I would have been all day trying to sand it with 120 grit or 220 grit. So I switched to a 40 grit sandpaper to do that part, and I got it smooth with the 40 grit sandpaper, and then I was able to get it nice and perfect with 220 grit sandpaper. And as you can see, everything turned out really nice and smooth, and I always rub my hand over the areas that I sand just to make sure that they feel smooth. And I just went over the areas that I could not get into with the sander with a piece of sandpaper around a sanding block. And this is my first time doing two pieces in one video, so I didn't know exactly how much of the repetitive parts that you guys would want to see, but here is some footage of me sanding the other nightstand as well with the same process, just 220 scuff sanding over the entire piece, and then going over the areas that I patched or filled with 120 grit, and then going over that with 220 grit again and hand sanding the tight spots. Up next, I took my blower and I just blew out all the debris that I just made from sanding. Everything is nice and smooth at this point, so I'm going to be cleaning, but I found that if I can get rid of all the dust from the area with the blower first, it just makes cleaning that much easier. So that's what you see me doing here. My next step is going to be to clean everything thoroughly with my lint-free cloth and my simple green cleaner. So that's what I'm doing. I'm cleaning the inside, the drawer guides, the back, the bottom of the drawers, the holes where the hardware were. I'm cleaning everything inside the drawers. So I'm giving this a very thorough wipe down. And I graduated from using paper towels because sometimes they can leave little crumbles that end up in your paint. So I'm just showing you. Of course, I did the same thing on both. Like I said, I didn't want to be too repetitive, but I'm just giving this a really thorough cleaning. And here I'm doing a little hack that I kind of taught myself on accident. And you can see that I'm putting painter's tape down the side, and what that's going to do is that's going to not allow the drawer to go all the way in. Then I'll be able to paint this with the drawer kind of propped open, and even if I do add a little bit of pressure to it or hit it by accident, it won't go all the way in. So I'm able to get the areas that are on the frame of the nightstand as well as the drawer in one fell swoop when I go to paint. I'm also putting a piece of tape across the top, which also acts like a stopper when I try to push the drawer in, and it allows me to use a sprayer to paint without having the paint go inside the drawer. So it acts as a buffer. It collects any paint that would have gone inside the drawer had it not been there. So I'm just going to apply tape down the sides and across the top, and then I will be all ready to prime. See, as you can see, the drawer did not go in. This is my new paint sprayer, the Finish Max Super. I kind of like it so far. Of course, I haven't had that much practice with it, but I got it from a lady on OfferUp, so I didn't pay full price for it, and she sold it to me with this painter's tint. So I'm really excited to be trying out some new things in this video. Forgive the color variations. My camera broke during the shooting of this video. So I'm just making do at this point. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing clearly, but just forgive the color variation. So right now I'm just spraying bin primer. As you can see, the drawers are propped open by the tape, open enough for me to paint, but not open enough for the drawers, the inside of the drawers, to fill with primer. So I was really satisfied with that. And here I am just continuing to spray. This is the bin primer that I always use and that I love. So right now I'm just kind of doing the detail work around the legs, and as you can see, this paint sprayer cuts my painting time in half. I'm comfortable with it with the primer. I've used it with the primer. I'm not gotten comfortable with it with paint yet, because the primer, I'm used to sanding that anyway, but I've not found the perfect setting. So I didn't rely on this to give me a perfect coat of primer. It got me pretty close, and then I was able to sand it the rest of the way smooth. But with the paint, I kind of just don't want to spray it unless I can spray it once and have it go on completely flat and completely smooth. So I just got this about a week or so before filming this video, and I haven't had that much practice with the sprayer. So it's fine for the primer because I'm used to having to sand that anyway. But it left a slight little bit of texture, but it cut down my priming time to a quarter of the time I normally use. So I loved it for that, but for painting, I wasn't as comfortable yet, and I'm going to find the right settings to do that. So like I said, the lady who sold me this, she sold it to me with a paint tint as well, which I was very glad to have, because if you are a painter like me and you paint outside, you know, pollen, bugs, dust, all kind of dander can end up in your paint job. So I was very happy to be able to paint these and let them kind of dry inside this tint where no bugs or debris would get on my primer. So like I said, after I finished with my 2 coats of bin, then I decided to go ahead and use the orbital sander to smooth out. This is 220 grit sandpaper, and then after I got the big areas, I took them inside and I just kind of did a final hand sanding with a piece of sandpaper wrapped around a sanding block. So that went really smooth, and it cut the time that I normally spend priming and by a lot, and so I was really happy with that. And after I finished that sanding, I just wiped it down again. Here is the paint that I will be using. This is the Fusion Mineral Paint. So I'm using about a quarter of that mixed with 3/4 of this Fusion paint called Little Lamb. I wanted kind of a lighter gray color. So I just kind of took my paint mixing cup and mixed those two together. And here is the color that I came out with. Not as light as I actually was trying to go for, but I didn't have that much of the casement. So here you can see Little Lamb on the right, then my concoction on the left. Due to me shooting this with no natural light and with a broken phone, not sure if you can really tell, but the colors are slightly different. Here's my Klingon brush that I always use. And here is my technique. So I go around the areas where there is like a groove or an indentation, like on the side panel. I start by pushing the paint into the indented area, and then I complete that whole side. So I pushed the paint into where that indentation was, and then I went on and did that whole side. Now I'm pushing the paint into the little feet, and then I'm going to go ahead and complete the whole front. And so I kind of just work it in sections like that. Wherever there's a lot of detail or any indentations, any recessed areas, I go into the recesses, and then I just do that side. Here it is again. You see me going around because that's where the recessed area is, where the sides panel is. And so I go around that area first, and then I just fill in. And I like to do the top last. And so, you know, that's pretty straightforward. Just go in one direction. And I do the drawer fronts the same way. I get the recessed areas, and then I'll follow back over it by doing the flat area. So that's my painting technique, but you know, whatever works for you works for you. I've just found by addressing the recessed areas first, then I miss less areas. And the first go around does not have to be perfect. Normally I always miss at least 1 or 2 areas when I do this, but as you can see, you know, I end up getting them perfectly fine and they turned out really well. So here's how everything looked after 2 coats of paint. So Walmart sells this product and it mimics rub and buff or gilding, gold gilding is another name you might know it by. And I'm just going to take my finger and a small detail brush and just go over some of the ornate areas. Not perfectly, but I just want to give it a little hint. I want to kind of make it look like it was aged a little bit. So I'm just going to roughly go over that, not looking for complete coverage, not looking for perfection at all. And if you've watched my last flip, you know I recently met wax, which I really like, but this polyacrylic is my tried and true top coat. And I have found the settings that I can use with this sprayer to lay down the polyacrylic really nicely. So that's what you see me doing here, just a top coat, and I did end up doing 2 coats of this. Here I am using some furniture salve and a little sponge that I got from Dollar Tree, and I'm able to make the wood inside the drawers look and smell great with that. And after I finish with that, I am just going to be reapplying the hardware. So let's remember what we started out with. And now here is the finished product. I really think these turned out beautiful. I'm actually tempted to keep them for myself. I really love them. I think they are really beautiful. So you let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I've been starting to get questions about how much money I sell stuff for. I don't really like answering those questions, to be honest, but in this case I will give you what I'm thinking. I haven't listed them yet because I'm thinking about keeping them. I really think they're beautiful. And they are Dixie brand furniture, so you know they're nice quality furniture. But in this instance, I think I'm going to list them for $400. I don't live in an area where I can sell many things for what I actually think they're worth. And that is because I live in an area that is heavily saturated with military families, and they are more inclined to just go up the street and buy some IKEA furniture just so they can have something to put in their homes while they're here. This is not a lot of people's final destination. So most people are not really going to be investing in furniture pieces that they'll keep for a long time. So I do get lucky and I do find really good buyers, but when I keep in mind that the only real output that I had in this case was the initial $40 and everything else that I used was things I already had, then it's still a pretty good profit and I'm okay with it. If and when I achieve my goal of opening a store, I probably could sell them for about $800, but right now I don't have the overhead that a store would bring, so there's pros and cons to selling each way. And I don't really like to haggle, so I just price stuff to sell. I think $400 is fair if I do decide to list them, but I'm still not sure yet. So that is this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have the time, please select another one of my videos to watch from the choices on the screen. And I will see you guys in my next one. Bye guys.